Hello everyone, welcome to Talking Health with Dr. Laz, your favorite health program on television, reaching you from Nigeria's capital city, Abuja. My name is Dr. Laz Eze. Nigeria's population increased from 45 million in 1960 to more than 220 million in 2020, and this is according to the National Population Commission. Several studies have established relationship and, in fact, correlation between our population growth as well as our developmental challenges. Also, according to the National Population Commission, our population growth rate as at 2020 was 3.2%, and of course, is still growing much faster than our economy. So this very high population growth has been blamed by experts to be significantly contributing to the rising insecurity, rising economic challenges, the education sector that is in an unacceptable situation, as well as many other developmental challenges bedeviling not just Nigeria, but many countries around the world. So as the country moves into another election in 2023, and as the processes begin this year, we find it very imperative to start this conversation so that policymakers, begin to think through, baseline solutions, tackling the roots of some of our development challenges and not just focusing on the symptoms. So on the program today, we'll be talking about population, our population in relation to our human capital development and our economic situation. And I'll be having an expert in this topic who has spent decades as a public health professional and also training a lot of people and leading in a lot of public health programmatic interventions to ensure that Nigeria gets it right. So you're going to meet my guest. I know you can't wait, but stay with us. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Talking Health with Dr. Laz, your favorite health program on television. Yes, like I mentioned before the break, population growth has been linked to a lot of developmental challenges we are having. And I have an expert who loves this topic so much with decades of experience in public health program management, particularly family planning and population-related issues, Dr. Ejike Oji. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Laz, for having me.
Yes, Dr. Oji is the Chairman Technical Management Committee of the Association for Advancement of Family Planning, and also the civil society organization's focal point at the FP 2030, that's Family Planning 2030, is a global group that is pushing for sufficient investment in family planning to achieve the goals by the year 2030.
Correctly.
Thank you, sir. So this is a topic that is very close to your heart, and quickly, like I said during the intro, our population growth, from 45 million in 1960 to 220 million right now. So compared to Britain, you made these comparisons in your presentations at different fora. So kindly speak a bit to the relationship between our population, the economy, health, education, and every aspect of our national development.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very important topic that affects our national development. Like you correctly said, at 1960, when we got our independence from Britain, our population was just 45.2 million. And that of Britain was about 52 million. And then by 2007, our population had risen to 140 million, whereas Britain was still about 62.5 million. As at the last count in 2020, our population had risen to more than 220 million, while that of Britain is still less than 68 million. Now, somebody will say, China is such a big country, they are making strides. India is such a big country, they are making strides. But the context is what we have to look at. The problem with our population is, one, is growing faster than our developmental rate.
Okay.
The second thing is that because of that, our fertility rate is very high.
By fertility rate, you mean the rate at which
the rate at we produce children.
Give birth to children. Okay.
Our fertility rate is about 5.3 as we speak now. And now let me give it a comparison to the global. In 1994, there was an international conference on population and development. And the world had looked at the rapid growth of the population. The population of the world at that time was about 5. And they said by 2025, they should reduce it to 2.2. ICPD plus 25 was in Kenya in 2019. By the time the world now looked at what they had done, the world had actually reduced cumulatively the fertility rate to 2.5.
Okay.
And that's why you see most of where you have those advances are where you have tremendous advances in development. Let me go back to India. 50 years ago, India was a very poor country. Even China, until they legislated and said, let us cut our fertility rate. India said, 1 couple, 2 children.
Okay.
China said, 1 couple, 1 child. But they didn't stop at that, because you already have very big bulge of young population. They invested massively. So let me come back to Nigeria now, continue that conversation. In Nigeria, 70 to 72% of our population as we speak is under the age of 30.
Okay, so that's youth bulge.
Youth bulge.
That should be an advantage.
Thank you. That's why I'm trying to get it. It will be an advantage if we make 5 deliberate steps, that is generational, 1 generation, 20 years. Deliberate. From one government to the other must continue that deliberate action for us to have what we call demographic dividend. First of all, you have to transit, because as we speak, we're in a demographic crisis.
What's demographic crisis?
When you have 3 things, you know that your country is in trouble. Number 1, if you have a youthful bulge, and whereas the fertility rate is high and growth rate is higher than the population growth rate is higher than the development rate.
Right.
Secondly, when you have signs to show that there's a lot of immigration going out of your country.
Okay.
And the reason is simple. The young ones cannot aspire and get anything. They are unemployed. Most of them are largely unemployable. Remember, Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children in the streets. So you now have a lot of immigration going out. And let me give you concrete terms to show that immigration is a problem. Leaving the country. In 2006, I was invited by the Norwegian government to be part of an African team to help work with them to craft out their policy for issues of women's health and women's rights in Africa. By the time I sat down with the International Development Minister in Oslo, the first question he put to me, Dr. Oji, how come every single day 13 commercial workers come into their country, sex workers?
From Nigeria?
From Nigeria. 2006. The International Migration Organization at some point said that 14% of all Africans that cross the tempestuous Mediterranean Sea, you know, Mediterranean Sea is the second most dangerous sea on earth. They try to cross it on rafts because they are desperate to leave the African continent to Europe. 14 out of every 100 of them are Nigerians.
Okay, so these are signs of
immigration
and the demographic crisis
that is coming up.
Yes, looking at the slide, you know, in 1960...
I wanted to the third one.
Okay, please
now,
proceed.
When President Buhari came into power, he found a lot of Nigerians were trapped in Libya, trying to cross over when the Europeans blocked their ports. More than 20,000 Nigerians were evacuated from Libya. Then 4 years ago, there was a migrant attack in Libya too. 44 people were killed, 9 of them were Nigerians. Now the final evidence of immigration. The final one, even that one is unskilled. Skilled labor leaving the country is not so much because they bring back diaspora and economy, but it's also in context.
Of course, health workers have been in the news.
Thank you very much.
For
As at
massive
2010, I was in Washington, D.C. to make a presentation to ANPA. ANPA is Association of Nigerian Physicians in America. They had 20,000 Nigerians registered. They are all Nigerian trained doctors that went over. Then the final one is when you see nationals killing nationals. It started with OPC in the southwest, militancy in the Niger Delta, kidnapping in the southeast, a religious crisis on the plateau, Boko Haram in the northeast, banditry in the northwest. Now there are killings, kidnappings all over the country. These are just the third thing that has completed that the country is in a demographic crisis.
But some persons have linked it to climate change.
That's part of it, because what has also happened is that the space to grow your food is also shrinking. The space is not increasing, but the number of people per unit listen is also increasing.
Okay.
So it will increase poverty. So these are the problems that we have, and then we must. And so there's a high dependency ratio. 13% of Nigerians are supporting 87% of the rest of the Nigerians in the country.
Let me try to explain that. 13% of Nigerians are
supporting the other 87%.
In other words, out of every 100 Nigerians, 13 are working.
And earning livable wages.
Earning livable wages. So they are the one feeding and sponsoring 87 out of every 100.
Remember that 72% really is under the age of 30. If you look around now...
So if all that 70% are active, perhaps 70 would have been carrying 30, right?
Thank you. That's when you now have what we call the demographic shift.
Okay.
And it will go through transition to dividend. So if we are now able to take those 5 deliberate steps I was mentioning before, number 1, reduce the fertility rates. Number 2, invest in that young population, appropriate, relevant, and accessible healthcare. It will reduce maternal mortality, which is one of the drives for increased fertility rates. Number 3, invest in appropriate, relevant, accessible, and appropriate education. In other words, not everybody will go to the university. Bring in trade schools so that people who can use their hands will start working. Once you do that, the next logical 4th step is to create an environment of ease of doing business. So those young ones who have now gone to school, either will be able to acquire relevant skills that they can use to start their own businesses. They will also be employable. At the end of the day, they have livable wages. They start saving. Then you have increase in the gross domestic product. And that will mean increase in income per capita. Then the final one, which is so important, and I'll explain to you, is the country should be made to be a country where there's equity, justice, fair play, accountability, transparency in the order of doing business, especially in leadership and governance. That way...
Dr. Oji, sorry, I have to cut in. We'll be taking a break. I'm sure the next segments we're going to be breaking down further these 5 solutions you've proposed. But looking at this presentation, 2% was unemployment rate in 1960.
Exactly.
And I think, was it the first quarter or last quarter, about 33% of Nigerians are unemployed. You know, so that's perhaps...
And some of them unemployable.
Yes,
in the formal sector.
Some of them unemployable in the formal sector. And even in the informal sector, not many have skills they could use to earn income. Someone might be wondering why we are talking about all this that is sounding like an economic program. But health has relationship with everything because there is a direct correlation or relationship between the economy and health or disease. So the poorer a country is, the more disease, the more health challenges. So all these are related, and that's why taking care of our population is also a public health issue. So we'll take another break. When we return, Dr. Oji is still here in the studio and is going to be going further into the solutions. And we do hope that policymakers are watching. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Talking Here with Dr. Laz, your favorite health program on television. Yes, with me in the studio discussing population growth and our economy and human capital development, the challenges and strategies to make progress, has been the Technical Management Committee Chairman of the Association for the Advancement of Family Planning, Dr. Ejike Oji. Welcome back to the program, sir.
Thank you, Zaz.
Yes, so let's now go into a bit more details, those 5 strategies you outlined. And of course, why we're having this discussion is because this is an election year, pre-election activities, the election will happen next year, but we want policymakers to look at these root causes to, instead of focusing on symptoms, you know, so we could have tackling them from the roots, especially looking the way of you know, moderating our population growth. So first you said family, you didn't use that language, but essentially it's family planning, or childbirth spacing or moderating population growth. So yes, you take it up from there.
Yes, when you look at, when you want to do things, you look at first of all leadership, governance structures, and then you look at the infrastructure to do the work, and then you look at the supply and the demand side. And of course, you look at the monitoring and evaluation component of all of this. As a country, have we, in terms of policy, looked at what is going on? The answer is yes. My association, the Association for the Advancement of Family Planning, way back in 2010, strongly advocated to the government of Jonathan at the point that we are in crisis, that we should do something about family planning uptake. So Nigeria was able to do 2 things in 2012 when this FP 2020 started. Number one, the federal government at that time was able to put $3 million for the first time in the history of this country for purchase of commodities. And we applauded the government at that time. Number two, they went to London when the summit was there, was had, and said Nigeria would be able to reduce or increase the contraceptive prevalence rates, modern methods, from about 10% that we had at that time to 36%.
36, yeah.
So that's a policy statement. Did they happen? The money was reduced staccato-wise.
What does that mean?
Means this year they will release 1 million, the next year they will release 2 million, another day they will not release anything at all. We will be piling pressure as a civil society. Come the Buhari government. The Buhari government now said, no, we cannot make the 36% by 2020. We have to rebase. So it was now rebased from 36 to 27%. But also started releasing the money for commodities. In fact, in 2018, the money was released completely. That's 3 million. Then we now say, let us increase it to 4 million because the population was going on. And then eventually they accepted it. But also the staccato release of money fashion, it wasn't going so as we speak, as we wanted. But then, 2 years ago, because of all the advocacy and then push our association has been making, the president sent a memo to the to NIPS, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, the 42nd Senior Executive Course, and told them they should focus on population growth challenges and human capital development.
Okay.
I led a group of 4 consultants to work with NIPS as at that time, funded by an organization called DRPC. We worked with them for 1 week and they finished and developed 14 recommendations they recommended to the Mr. President. Mr. President approved all of that. That's what led to Mr. President working with National Population Commission to launch the National Population Policy. Leadership has been established by our president.
Okay.
This is the first time in the history of this country that a sitting president made such profound pronouncements on population. He said population was a problem. We should deal with it.
Yes, but the National Population Policy was launched this year, 2021.
Just about last week, 2 weeks ago.
So, yeah, some weeks ago. So, and interestingly, in 2021 health budget, no money for family planning.
Thank you.
So, how do you reconcile that? From 2012, the commitments we made, and the sustained advocacy by civil society organizations and many other persons, even Federal Ministry of Health and all of that. And we come to 2020, zero budgetary allocation.
2021.
No, 2021, yeah, thank you. So zero budgetary allocation to procurement of family planning commodities.
It was a shock to all of us. Remember what I said? You could see consistently there has been leadership by Mr. President. Remember I mentioned there are 4 things you have to look at. One is leadership. Has the government taken the leadership? Mr. President has taken the leadership.
You keep focusing on Mr. President. What about
Hold
Mr.
on,
President has
down.
a minister?
So coming down, that's the
doing
governance
this.
structures. That is where we had a problem. So nobody could explain to us why there was no family planning commodity, for money for commodity.
Have you asked this to the minister?
We've been asking questions. We have not gotten the kind of answers we want. But promises have been made that it will be made up before the end of this year. So
that's
we're
interesting,
watching.
but I think perhaps we may have to, I'm throwing this open to the Honorable Minister of Health, the Director of Family Health, and the Federal Ministry of Health, perhaps to explain to Nigerians why there is no money for family planning in 2021 budget and what specifically they plan to do about this, because when we're launching population policy and there's no money for these services, in fact, we have unmet needs. For the modern methods, for
19%.
19% unmet needs. So which means even though we are not doing enough, but even for those who are requesting for family planning services, they are not even having it. And we are not putting money to it. That's
but also,
really interesting.
I like to be positive. Why do I say so? It's happened. Have we moved from there? The answer is yes. Nigeria recommitted to the 2020 initiative, which is now 2030. And we developed all-inclusive, getting all the sub-nationals to be included in the process of committing again to 2030. And in that commitment, which the minister launched last week or 2 weeks ago, in that launch, we all agreed that every year, 1% of consolidated revenue, both at the federal and the state level, will be made available for issues of family planning in the country. Because we had done the analysis, if we do that, we should be able to have enough money. We won't even depend on foreign donors to fund our family planning programs, because it's a strategic security thing now.
Okay, so how do you make that happen, given that the National Health had made similar provision for primary health care, at least 1% of consolidated revenue fund? It took 4 years before it made the budget. And even after it made the budget, the release has been challenging between 2018 and 2022. So another 1% for a health-related intervention.
That's 1% of the health budgets.
Okay, of the health budget,
Health
not
budget
the consolidated
of the
revenue
states
fund.
and of the federal level.
Okay.
So for me, like I said, I want to
be
stay
optimistic.
Thank you. I want to stay positive. We will continue to try. We will continue to push. This is our country. We have no other country. This is the best country anybody can live in. So we are very optimistic. The important thing is that the policies are in place. It is for the civil society to continue to nudge and make sure there's accountability in whatever we say we want to do, that we do them.
Okay.
But the important thing for me is that policies are now in place. The second important thing is that we have made another commitment to the entire world, not just the Nigerian people. So what we're now trying to do is to develop framework for accountability, both at the national and at the sub-national level.
Okay, what we want to ask, these commitments are made by federal government on behalf of Nigeria.
Not this time around, not just federal government.
All the
It was
states.
all inclusive, including the sub-national states and local governments, civil societies were all engaged in developing these commitments.
Okay, so what is the strategy to get by 2023? We are going to be having new governors in majority of the states. So how do we get these policies, to the understanding of the new political players and even at the legislature, at the executive, that will be coming in, so as they put it as a priority without certain gains that have been made. Not because sometimes when you have change in government, you begin to teach the new persons and you have something go back before you start moving again. Is there any strategy to make this
Yes, the
different?
strategic thing that our association and other stakeholders have made here is that we disaggregated your audiences.
Okay.
Who do we talk to that speaks to the conscience of Laz? Maybe his wife. So why waste time going to talk to him? Talk to the wife. The wife will do the job. It's been very obvious to us that the religious leaders and the traditional leaders play a very big role in our personal lives. So we've started an intervention to reach the traditional rulers.
Okay.
Intervention to reach the religious leaders also. That way, when we speak to them, when the politicians go and they hear it from the traditional rulers, they know it's now an election thing.
Okay.
And the association also want to make sure that we speak to the two major political parties so that it will be an agenda in the manifestos of the two political parties.
Okay, we wish you well in that, and I think it's a good point to end the discussion. Time is never enough, but we have to end it here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ejike Oji, Chairman, Technical Management Committee, Association for the Advancement of Family Planning, and CSO Focal Point for Family Planning 2030.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the much we have to take today on the program. Family planning is key to moderating our population growth so that we will not growing faster than the economy and the pace of our development. And this has been seen as a major solution to tackling enormous challenges we are facing as a country, especially in the health sector. Thank you for watching. See you same station, same time next week. My name is Dr. Laz Eze. Bye for now.